Hey guys, welcome back to Heiko's Garage. Today we have a watch build on the program. I have liked the Seiko 6105-8110, the so-called Captain Willard, for a long time. They are just really expensive to buy. So if you want an original, the watch that Martin Sheen wore in Apocalypse Now, and go on eBay and you find a nice one, you're going to spend upwards of $2,000 to get one. Maybe you're lucky and you get it for $1,000. But then you still have a vintage watch that probably needs a restoration or at least a maintenance. And it is still a, 50-year-old watch. Or you can buy yourself one of the Seiko re-releases that they have done over the years. Unfortunately, they are also rather expensive and they are not exactly true to the original. So some of the dimensions have slightly changed. The look has changed a little bit. They are nice watches, but also really expensive, and it's just not affordable for me. You can also go onto Aliexpress and find yourself one of those many homage watches that imitate the design and the look of the Seiko 6105-8110. For example, Steel Dive. And there might be a potential for a comparison between my self-built homage and the Steel Dive homage. That might be coming up here on this channel. Today, I'll just give you a quick sped up version of the assembly of my homemade Seiko 6105 homage. The parts are pretty much exclusively off of AliExpress. I spent a lot of time looking at the specifications of the original to find a case that has the exact dimensions, including a 19mm lug-to-lug. So I have a 19mm rubber strap on there, which was on the original Captain Willard. And I think that gives it a little bit more of a vintage look than all those homage watches that usually all use 20mm. Even the re-releases of Seiko have gone up in size. So I wanted to stay as true to the design as I could possibly make it. And then I was originally trying to get a dial that doesn't have the word Seiko on it because I don't want to make a fake. I wanted to make my own that just looks like a Captain Willard and then be happy with it. Unfortunately, I didn't read the fine print of the advertisement, and unfortunately, I got one that says Seiko on it. The parts were actually not super inexpensive, so I wasn't trying to make the cheapest Captain Willard homage watch. I was trying to make the one that, at least in my eye, is relatively close to the original look. So let's jump right in. Let's not talk any longer, and let's just go into the assembly. All right, guys, so here is the assembly of all the parts, taking the case out. This is the case that I chose, and here you can see that I'm measuring 19mm for the strap. The strap is coming out of the box. I can't say the name, is Rudny from AliExpress. It wasn't really cheap. It's really the only chocolate bar strap that I could find in 19mm. Not super happy. It's really stiff. It doesn't want to conform to my wrist at all. It came with spring bars, and the case came with spring bars. Now I have two sets. They are not super quality, but for the time being, I guess it's going to be okay. The case is completely assembled, so there's already a chapter ring in there. The bezel is on, the bezel insert. The crown is currently screwed onto the tube there on the side. As you can see, it's the cushion case design of the original, at least, they tried to imitate it, I guess. So putting some stuff away. Here comes the dial. Everything is really nicely packaged, so nothing was damaged. I think this dial was around $30. And as you will see immediately, it's a matte black. So I didn't want to shine. I didn't want any kind of sunburst pattern on there or any other design. The hands, they were rather inexpensive. I think they were like $6. Not sure. I will leave links down below in the description. Here comes a movement holder. I bought an NH35 or a Seiko NH movement compatible movement holder. So it just holds it nicely, and I don't have to clamp it into my typical normal universal movement holders. Then you see the gray plastic ring on the outside of the movement. Oh yeah, by the way, this movement came out of the steel dive that was sitting there on the left side. The steel dive doesn't have a date window, but they still slept an NH35 in there, so I took that out and put an NH38 in it. So here's the dial. As you can see, the print is definitely different. There are more words on there than on the original. There's also this little symbol down below the 200 meters, and it says limited edition 6105-8110. On the original, I think it would have said Japan 6105-8009T. I will put a picture right there. So then I had the dial and the movement together. I found the spot where the date clicks over, and that's where you stop, and then you want to align your hour hand and your minute hand to 12 o'clock. And the hands always take the longest. You want to get them just so pointing at 12 o'clock, all lining up. The second hand was actually quite a challenge. The little tube that goes over the second hand pinion was a little too tight, so I couldn't seat it far enough without bending stuff. I ended up using a brooch to open up that little hole in the second hand to just slide it on a little easier. That worked out okay. This is not in the video. I did that off camera. So yeah, you want to try to get the hands just lined up with 12 o'clock right at that point when the date window clicks over to the next day. Some people do it right before it clicks over. I guess there are different methods. Depends on where you want your, or when you want your date to click over. So yeah, the hole in the second hand that goes onto the second hand pinion is a little on the tight side on the set. They were willing to send me another replacement, but then after I just cleaned it out with a brooch, I told them, just keep it, it's fine. And the color of the loom in those hands matched the color of the loom on the dial pretty nicely, at least here in daylight. At night, unfortunately, the hands are a little on the dark side. I spare you the loom shot. As I mentioned, there might be the potential for a comparison video between a Aliexpress Captain Willard. Brand will not be disclosed at this point. So now I'm peeling off the stickers. I will also clean the case from the inside. I have some lens cleaner that I always use. Now you can see me using some Rodico. There was some sticky stuff on the hands. They are polished, shiny, which is not quite true to the original. I think the hands on the Captain Willard, the 6105-8110, actually had some a matte finish. These are beveled on the side, so they have quite a nice, three-dimensional shape, the hand, the minute and the hour hand. So I am just trying to clean off as much smudges and flakes of dust on the dial and on the hands as I can, make it as clean as possible, especially along the edges. And like I said, those hands weren't really very expensive. They came wrapped in paper in a little box, so there was bunch of stuff on them. I don't know why. Very sticky. They were always sticking to my tweezers, but then after a little bit of some Rodico treatment, they look pretty good. And some air. And we're still not done, so yeah, I really wanted to make this as look as good as I could. And there were also a couple smudges on the dial, unfortunately. And I think I even found a couple small little scuffs on the matte finish of the dial, which, that's of course not very nice. I thought I'd get a super clean one. But overall, with your bare eye, you can't see it. I'm using 2.5 or 3.5 times magnification on my little stereoscopic little loop there. No. And now I'm just checking if the hands are parallel to the dial. And now the nice thing about this holder is you can put the movement in there upside down, and it just supports the very edge of the dial. So now I'm pushing the little lever down so I can get this stem and plastic crown out of there. Flip it over onto my case cushion, and there you go. So on case cushion, and it's running. As you can see, there is the crown taken off the case, and I'm blowing out the case one more time and slide it right over. And now the movement is inside the case. It's being held on by this gray ring that you saw earlier. That's the whole circumference of the movement. You just have to shove it in and push it in, and there's only one cutout in that plastic ring. That's where the tube for the stem goes. So then you have to put the stem that came with the movement and the crown together, and of course this is going to be way too long, so you stick that in. Then you use you got to make sure you're in the fully pushed in position, and then you're going to use calipers to measure the distance between the threaded tube that's in the case and the bottom side of the crown, so to speak, the side that screws onto that tube. Measure the distance. In my case, it was 4.6 millimeters to cut off, and then I used a little file, and then later on some sandpaper here, some fine sandpaper, to smooth out the cut. That's just necessary so that you can actually screw the crown back on, because when you use those side cutters, you are squeezing the stem together and you are damaging the threads. So then you just clean the end up until the threads are all nice and nicely formed and clean, and then you screw the crown back on. Some people put a drop of Loctite on there. I didn't do that in this case. Then I'm cleaning up the dust. As you can see, my case and my movement were under a little cover there. So now you want to make sure that you cut the stem short enough so that you can actually screw the crown on all the way so that it seats properly. And here you're going to see me show you. So you want it just so that, you know, for the engagement of the threads, you have to push it in ever so slightly. So you measure literally from the end of the tube to the side of the crown that's towards the tube, and then cut that off. So here's the case back. The gasket is already in there. Sometimes you have to spin it backwards a little bit until the threads line up. Here we go. And then the rubber ball comes out, and tighten that up really well. And there it is. Yep. So you can see limited edition. Unfortunately, the chapter ring doesn't line up all the way around for whatever reason. Maybe the spacing is not right. You can see between 9 and 12 o'clock it lines up perfectly. Down at 6 o'clock it doesn't. And 3 o'clock. So I tried to move the movement around a little bit to make that a little less obvious. But yeah, unfortunately the chapter ring, the original actually doesn't have minute markings on the chapter ring. But yeah, maybe I will change that one of these days. And now I'm putting the 19 millimeter chocolate bar style rubber strap on there. And as I mentioned, it wasn't super cheap for something from Aliexpress. So it's not like a $5 rubber strap. I will put links to all the parts that I used down in the description. It's very stiff. It is real rubber. It's not silicone, but it's a little on the stiff side. I'm hoping that it might, you know, conform to my wrist as I wear the watch a little bit. You can also see a little bit some blue coating on the end of the crown there. That is just to protect the polished surface. I peeled that off later. So, and there's another sticker at the back. Can't get it off with my finger cuts. Take that off, all shiny. And there it is. And now I'm setting the time and then screw the crown. Oh, actually winding it up and then screw back the crown. And there it is on my wrist. And that's the completion of my 6105 Homage. Unfortunately, it says Seiko on there. Maybe I should make it say Heiko on it because it's spelled H-E-I-K-O, just like Seiko is, you know, E-I-K-O. All right, guys, that's it for today. I hope you enjoy this little video, the assembly of my personal homage to the Seiko 6105-8110 Captain Willard. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and look for that comparison video that's going to come out soon. All right, guys, take care. Bye.